Senior cybersecurity consultant from company EBC Instruments. Before we start, I would like to thank to Mr. Racev and complete AX staff for organizing this excellent cybersecurity conference and opportunity to give me this opportunity to become introducer speaker for this session 5. I will try to be as short as possible in order for us to have afterwards presentation and panel discussion, on which we will have apart Mr. Senad from Cisco, two additional speakers, Mr. Stanižan and Mr. Mastilović. As we all know, on this conference we were speaking about moving from cybersecurity to cyber resilience, but as we know, there is a huge fundamental difference between those two terms. First term, related to cybersecurity, is about reactive measures which we will implement in order to protect our infrastructure for incoming attack. And the second one is cyber resilience. Maybe we can say that it is quite a new term which doesn't have exact definitions up to now, which is accepted from, let's say, wider area of security experts. So as for now, we have just descriptive definition which gave us some framework, what does it mean and how we should move to cyber resilience. As we can see from a slide, cyber resilience can be achieved in continuous movement of complete organization. There are basically 4 phases which are connected, and only if one is missing, then we are in a huge problem. So, as I have said, we have 5 steps. First one is to protect our environment. Second one, detect, respond, recover, anticipate, and identify threats. Okay, we spoke about definitions. Now is time to define how to achieve cyber resilience. There are basically 5 steps which need to be implemented, or 5 ways, which means that either one of those is missing, we are in a huge problem. First step is to engage in proactive defense. I like to call it to receive a cybersecurity vaccine, which will immunize for, let's say, most known threats. Second one is to embrace a security, which means to spread the cybersecurity all over our organization. It doesn't matter is this some kind of small organization or I don't know, some big government institution. Afterwards, there is a third way, which is related to implementation of data-centric security, which means that we need to be obliged to, let's say, protect our crown jewels, which are in forms of any kind of data important for our organization. Fourth step is demand application and infrastructure security by design, which means that in all steps of development within our organization, we need to have adequate implementation of cybersecurity controls. And the fifth one is to be brilliant at the basics. What does it mean? It means that we are obliged to have adequate patching level systems for access control, etc. So despite last one is in most cases trivial, we were listening during yesterday's session that most of industries are not implementing this solution due to, let's say, technical restrictions. And I will not, let's say, use or abuse your time anymore. I will just, on the last or third slide, show something what happened to me in, let's say, few months ago with one of the government institutions. We can see here that with my ID and certificate, without any hacking, without anything, I could access to different tax reports from different, let's say, users. So I could download, I could do whatever I wanted with, let's say, their tax papers. So good thing in this is that I managed to reach them, and within 2 hours they have resolved it for myself. But now we can think how many of, let's say, call it holes, call it misconfigurations, or some kind of cyber unresilience exists within governments, within other, let's say, organizations. So, as I have said, this fifth track will be divided in 2 sessions in topic speakers where Mr. Senad will join us, and panelist, which will join us after this presentation. Those are Mr. Dragoslav Stanijan from Serbian CERT, Mr. Aleksandar Mastilovic from Regulatory Agency for Communication, and Mr. Senad Daruc, who is presenter on these topics. It will be all for me for now, and we will discuss afterwards on panel discussion. So thank you for your attention, and hopefully that this track will be interesting for you. Thank you. Mr. Senad, you are here. I didn't sorry.
It's okay. Okay, so can you hear me, guys? Okay, excellent. So, well, good morning, and I'd like to thank for the organizers here having me in this nice conference. And I feel it feels nice to be back to my home country, actually. So, a little bit about myself. I mean, generally, when I'm getting excited, I'm speaking very fast. So just feel free to raise your hand and to lower my speed. Okay. So, born and raised in Macedonia. I used to work in a lot of companies here, private and government companies, and last 10 years living in Europe, actually, right now, currently in Amsterdam. So I work for Cisco. I am responsible for Northern Europe and Turkey. I am in an advanced threats group, so which is mostly the couple of products and services that Cisco has for advanced threats. So today I'm going to show you guys about the biggest airport in the world. So because I'm coming from operational background, I used to work in cybersecurity operations centers on MSSPs, doing threat hunting, incident response, botnet research. Speaking in the conferences right now, I just flew in from Krakow. So yesterday I was in Krakow in confidence, and I changed 4 flights, all the night flying to be here. So treat me well, okay? So speaking about my latest project in the biggest airport in the world, in Istanbul. So I was the chief architect for their cybersecurity operations center. How big is that airport? So the airport is really big, but for me, most importantly, how innovative is this airport that they built in Istanbul. So roughly what they have is they have around 5,000 servers. Mostly of these servers doesn't have any internet connection because it's flight control servers controlled by IATA and Amadeus kind of systems. So for that reason, for this kind of servers, actually, we designed a very strict air-gapped architected solution which will have a full-blown visibility. They have around 40,000 IoT devices. So they have more cameras in one single, let's say, terminal when you compare to the whole Istanbul. Okay? So 40,000 cameras they have in one terminal. They have more than 15,000 event-based integrations. So basically, when a plane is landing, from the landing point, there is a high-definition cameras who are capturing the tail number, and then from the tail number, there is a big data which is correlating everything behind and is actually telling you how many seconds later you're going to receive your luggage. So everything is fully automated and integrated to make travel smooth and without any problems. They have 6,500 network devices, and I know very well, they have 45,000 access points from Cisco. Okay, so just to give you guys a rough idea about how big it is. They have 750 IT rooms, but most important for me is they have a tier-3 data center, first time in the world in an airport. So, a huge place, a big challenge. For us, took around 2 years, especially for myself. We were speaking with Goran today. I had 200 flights last year, so I fly 3.7 times around the globe just to close this project. So basically, it was a Cisco partner and of course, IGA itself. It took us 2 years. So what we've done there is actually we drafted a full, detailed, low and high-level architecture about their cybersecurity operations center. So it's actually a blueprint, how to design, how to build, how to implement actually, how to maintain SOC. One of the biggest challenges is there how to assess then the SOC services are in places and then how to evolve, how to be in time with the changes. So speaking about the cybersecurity operations centers, you know, there is multiple models that you can build, but the most standard ones are these ones here. I'm not sure if you guys can see it because of the display here. So basically, we have 4 well-known cybersecurity operations center generations. Okay, so how the attack sophistication is changing by the time. So basically, these SOC capabilities are going higher and higher. So the generation number 1 SOC is actually, it was a couple of years ago. I mean, it's not so long. Yeah, let's say 10 years maybe ago. It was mostly about device monitoring, log correlation. It was limited device coverage, so basically we were not able to collect logs from all kinds of devices. And that was not enough. And that was also reflecting to the incident response, right? Because when you're doing incident response, one of the main need is visibility, to know what happened. And starting from a simple threat intelligence alert, you need to enrich, you need to, let's say, make that intelligence actionable to be able to figure out what is happening. So that was not enough. Then we moved to the generation number 2, where we actually start collecting events from the endpoints, right? So it was event collection from the Windows machines, from the operating systems, to be able to see what is happening on the process level. Then we started, so vulnerability management, incident response capability. So this is when vulnerability management came into the cybersecurity operations centers. But that time, I remember very well, that vulnerability management, it was part of the operation, which it took a long time to figure out that that's wrong, okay? We need to separate vulnerability, let's say, management from the SecOps, because it's not their job, okay, which I'm going to show you later. Then the last one that we know, that we implement, that is based on some best practices, doesn't matter if it's a SANS or if it's any other best practice in the world, is, let's say, a data correlation, big data strict analytics, threat intelligence is coming in place now, right? So let's see what is happening in the world. Predictive things are coming in place and stuff like that. But these 4 generations were okay for this kind of airport, but it was not enough, if you ask me, because the threat landscape is changing. We are becoming more and more blind from the encrypted traffic, right? So we are actually trying to fight malware on the network, but malware is always on the endpoint, and its data is always on the endpoint. For that reason, what we've done there is that the whole cybersecurity operations center has been designed reverse. So we started from the endpoint. So we secure the endpoint with APP and ADR solution, which is Cisco AMP. And then we started to go to network, to have network telemetry, network APT solution, then to email, to web, et cetera, et cetera. So we build the defense in depth reverse. So what this means? This means that if you have that kind of integration, especially if you have a visibility on the endpoint, then the need of the SIEM solutions is not so, let's say, okay, it's okay, you still need a SIEM, but because you're going to receive a lot of information from the endpoint itself that you normally receive from the SIEM, so your dependency to the SIEM is going a little bit, let's say, lower than a classical cybersecurity operations center where you don't have visibility on the endpoint. So what happened? So we drafted, as I mentioned before, their full-blown, let's say, tailor-made cybersecurity operations center, and we separated the engineering and operation. What that means? Everything that is toolset related, everything that is technology related, it has been put under the engineering. So in the engineering guys are architects, system engineers, people who are taking care that everything in place is working like a single one machine, and that the SOC operation guys are using these tools to do to work day by day in their incident response best practices. Why we done this? And this is what we see from the real life scenario, is because your incident responder and threat hunter will be really, it will be not happy if he's doing vulnerability management, because it's not his job, okay? So the first thing, if you're thinking to build cybersecurity operations center, doesn't matter if it's for a public or private or CERT or whatever it is, the first thing you need to do is to separate operation and engineering. Another reason here is that engineering teams are on demand. You can have them where you need them, but operation teams are continuously. You must have them all the time there. Okay, so this is what we've done there. This is what we learned all this time. So actually, the biggest airport in the world is my 5th SOC that I built in my life. And yeah, it was a nice experience because I didn't have a gap analysis because there was nothing in place, right? So we just started building it. But I was also involved in SOC assessment projects where you are starting with a gap analysis, right, to figure out what they have, what they need, and what is missing. So let me show you a little bit about CISOC operation design. This is a vendor specific. Remember one thing, doesn't matter, well, do you guys have a 10, you're going to take a, can you guys lower the brightness? Okay, excellent. Otherwise I'm scanning you right now, everybody. Now I can see faces. So, what I believe, and what we believe actually at the Cisco, is that out-of-the-box vendor integration is taking a big hype in cybersecurity. If you check the big players like Cisco, like Microsoft, like any other vendor, they are doing acquisitions all the time to have a full-blown architecture who are going to be in top of the defense in depth, but who are going to be integrated out of the box. So out-of-the-box integration for APT solutions is really, really important. So what we have in the IGA is Istanbul Great Airport, by the way. So we have next-gen firewall, we have next-gen IPSs, we have WSA, ESA, so basically email security appliances. So basically, their whole, let's say, defense in-depth strategy is built by in Cisco technology. So what we have seen here actually, so these products that we have at the Cisco, the content security and firepower, these devices are receiving threat intelligence feeds, okay? And these threat intelligence feeds are really, really good for commodity stuff, for stuff that we know that exists somewhere outside, right? But when we're speaking about APT, unknown malware or zero-day malware, then threat intelligence will not help you too much, okay? Because the only way to figure out that someone just compiled a piece of malware is not threat intelligence, right? Is behave, is sandboxing, and is, let's say, telemetry, let's say, or some kind of baselining tools which can detect anomaly, right? But unknown malware, unknown threats, when I'm speaking unknown, I'm speaking unknown, right? It's really, really difficult with the threat intelligence. For that reason, we have AMP. We have Advanced Malware Protection Suite, which you activate in top of the technologies. And then you're going to have extra threat intelligence from Talos, which is one of the biggest threat intelligence groups in the world. But most important thing here is that we have dynamic and static analysis, which is a sandboxing, okay? So, and next one is the retrospective security. So retrospective security and sandboxing, you can take it like, sandbox is an integration room when you're putting someone to integrate, right? It's nothing more than integration room, okay? And retrospective security is to know when you have a new unknown executable in your environment, okay? So retrospective security is when you go in the office in the morning and you see a new face without a badge, and you're asking, hey, who are you? I never seen you before in my company, right? That's how retrospective security works, actually. Because that guy is unknown. He doesn't have a company badge. And remember, zero-day and unknown malware must be unknown, okay? So, and then we are taking this guy to the integration room, which is sandbox. And then we are trying to figure out if he's a good or bad. So that's how our cybersecurity portfolio works, actually. When we intercept a file within these technologies, we are checking if that file is good or bad. And if it's unknown, we are sending him to the integration room. Because that's the only way to, let's say, hunt unknown and zero-day malware. Another important thing is AMP for endpoint, which is ADR. So it's a connector that you can install on a lot of operating systems. And it gives you a lot of detection and response capability. Of course, it has its own APP capabilities, but the aim of this one is detection and response. I don't want to do a full demo about AMP for endpoint with you guys right now, but just to give you a little bit, let's say, teaser about what he's doing. Then the whole solution can be on public cloud, like we have on the IGA. So we have full-blown public cloud for the devices which are allowed to go to internet. And then we have everything in-house, we call on-premise, is full air-gapped models. So this model has been used in a lot of armies in Northern Europe. NATO is also one of them who is using a lot of air-gapped systems. So you can imagine that this kind of infrastructures which have some kind of very strict policies about the file submissions and sandboxing files, they are using air-gapped systems. So this is vendor architecture, right? This is Cisco. It can be another vendor. So it's very important to know that when you are going to choose your, let's say, your solution or your products, the number one question that you need to ask is how you integrate within your own portfolio and how you integrate with the third-party solutions. Because integration is something that you need to fight every day in your cybersecurity operations center. Okay, so or you're going to fight it yourself, or you're going to choose a solution who has out-of-the-box integration and they're going to fight for you. There is no other way. So let me continue now the problem with the security effectiveness gap. So the biggest problem today is a lot of solution and tools. Okay? So wherever you go in any company, especially banking sectors, they have a lot of money, right? They have minimum 20 cybersecurity products in place. And if you ask if they integrated them, no. If you ask, did they see anything of these devices? No, they just forgot them, right? Because they generate a lot of alerts They generate a lot of noise. And what is happening is taking the complexity high. So buying everything, having money, is not a solution, actually. It will going to make worse. So to address this, so what is happening here is that when the complexity is going down, as you can see here, time to detect and time to response is taking a really, really huge impact. Remember one thing, doesn't matter what you do in your cybersecurity operations center, there is two metrics that can measure your effectiveness. It's time to detection and time to response. That's really important. So it doesn't matter if you are taking a MSSP service from some third-party company, you can always ask a third party to assess what's their time to detection and time to response rates. That's really, really important. So a lot of tools, a lot of complexity will going to have an impact to time to detect and time to response. To have something like this, where the complexity and solution tools are going together, we built something like this. So this is Cisco's cybersecurity portfolio, which is coming from a lot of acquisitions in a couple of years. And that you see all these lines here, they're out-of-the-box integration. So basically, we share threat intelligence with all our solutions. We share event visibility with all our solutions. We have automated policy, our enforcement, all of our solutions, and we have a context awareness with all of our solutions. So this is pure out-of-the-box integration that Cisco is bringing on the market. So you don't need to put, well, you can put a SIM in front, in middle here, but you don't need to do that, okay? Because everything is connected out of the box. So this is actually what can give you guys, let's say, some kind of, let's say, integration, which will save a lot of integration money. It can save a lot of money from SIM implementations and stuff like that. This is a security analytics for national critical infrastructure. Again, this is a CSOC design architecture. So as you can see here, well, this is vendor oriented and this is technology oriented, okay? So now you can choose which one you like. I didn't want to come here and to speak only vendor, so for that reason, I want to tell you guys more generic stuff. So as you can see here, we have multiple sites. Then we have a full package, telemetry, net flows, everything is coming in place. Traffic replicators, right? This is really, really important. And then everything is going to the analyst layer where we analyze, we enrich, we correlate the data, and then of course the analyst layer, which is dealing with the threats from the right side. So it's not easy, right, to have everything like this in place. But for that reason, there is a lot of SOC assessment metrics in the cybersecurity world, like CMM and stuff like that. So basically, you can always measure your maturity by time. Now, any questions? Don't wait so I can finish it. Then, if you have something on your mind, just show up. Okay. So now, coming to another point, right? You guys are hearing every day, right? Defense in depth, end-to-end visibility, right? Zero trust. And blah, 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 and everything. Every day we're coming up with some kind of new strategies. One of the oldest strategies is defense in depth, which unfortunately is not working. Defense in depth is broken. Let me prove you. How defense in depth works is actually allows non-good files to pass through. This is application whitelisting, nothing more. Is a threat feed with SHA-256 or MD5 data, or I don't know, email can be, whatever it is, that has been known to be good, okay? How we protect? Application blocklisting, the opposite, right? We know that these files are bad, and we're going to block them before hitting our endpoints. Every single security vendor in the world who don't have a behavioral analytics sandboxing and heuristic engine is working like this. Doesn't matter how much money you pay, unfortunately it's like this. And do you know what is this? This is to go in a Ohrid airport here and to configure the cameras to record only the bad people and good people, but not to record the unknown people. So, I can read your mind, right? We had some kind of false sense of being secure all this year, buying a lot of devices, solutions, which were recording only the bad people and the good people. But when I say unknown, did you guys ever seen a zero-day or unknown malware which is non-bad? Then it's not zero-day, right? Or non-good, then it's not malware, right? So all these companies who are getting on the news hacked every day, they're getting hacked from these unknown guys, which is on the right there. So to fight unknown malware, you need to be everywhere. You need to monitor every single SHA-256, regardless of the disposition, if it's good or bad or unknown, right? And it's not easy, because the amount of unknown files on the internet is, I don't know how many quadrillions or whatever it is. I don't know what number is there, right? But amount of the bad stuff is always static. It's changing every second, but it's always, we know what is bad. And we know about what is good. So, another sample here is like, I will come back to this. Let me tell you now. So, we're speaking about threat intelligence, right? Okay, I will come back to that one. So, I don't want to spoil my slides. So, again, another thing what I've seen all this year working on the Cybersecurity Operations Center, like I started like analyst, senior analyst, team lead, MSSPs, shaping them, building them, breaking them. Of course, we made a lot of mistakes, right? We broke a couple of SOCs and stuff like that. Is the wrong perception of Cybersecurity Operations Center. I remember when we win the RFP for the biggest airport in the world, in Istanbul, I went there to present our solution in front of the top executive of IGA. And you know, these people put a lot of money, right, to build their Cybersecurity Operations Center. And they asked from me to tell them what I'm going to build there. And the first thing I told them that whatever I'm going to build, it will not going to protect you. And I wish that you guys were there to see their faces, because their understanding was we are putting, I don't know how many millions of euros in this project and we will be going to be protected. That's not true. Cybersecurity Operations Centers cannot protect. They are here to detect and respond. Because human cannot protect. Human can detect and respond. For that reason, protection falls under engineering. Devices who has been configured by the user and left to protect. Detection and response is with human, with his own logic, with his own curiosity to figure out what is happening, digging inside, and playing with the endpoints or with the alerts. So again, we are coming to that level. SOCs, Cybersecurity Operations Centers, are not for protection. Protection, we know what is there. So for that reason, don't blame your operation guys if you have a SOC, expensive SOC, right, OPEX, and you got breached, and don't go to them and blame them, because these people are not devices, right? So what about malware, right? So we know a lot of use cases that has been used, and we are building every day custom use cases in Cybersecurity Operations Centers, but still the most important reason why these companies are ending up in the newspaper are malware, okay? Look, without malware, you cannot do too much things, right? I mean, I mean, don't take now. I'm not a guy who is speaking always with the numbers, but I think it's maybe Goran can correct me here. I think around 80–85% of the breaches are always malware related, or maybe more, or maybe less. Come on. Yep, that's nice. So we have a lot of solutions, right? We have a lot of solutions like that is blocking 99% of the threats. Okay? So you can buy a solution who can block 99%. 100% doesn't exist. What will happen with 1% that is left? So let me tell you something. That 1% is unknown stuff. That 1% is targeted attacks, is APT, whatever you call it. So that 1% is always making yourself to end up in the news, or, I don't know, losing intellectual property, or these days, a lot of governments who rely on IT services, or who rely on IoT devices or SCADA devices can get problematic. So what's the most dangerous 1% of the threats that are hiding, right? They're using advanced evade techniques. They are fileless malware, right? So threat intelligence against fileless malware is problem, it's no go, right? Because you don't see the SHA-256. You need to do memory forensics. If it's the malware there, then you are lucky, right? But not in all cases. What about environment-aware malware, like malware who is escaping the sandboxes? We have seen that. You guys know WannaCry, right? WannaCry was everywhere in the news. And that kill switch domain that was used by WannaCry, actually it was a sandbox evade technique, right? To figure out that he's on the sandbox or not. Polymorphism, right? So polymorphic malware, which is changing his SHA-256 or his signature in every single execution and every single lateral movement. And then exploiting legitimate processes or process injection will not protect you against this kind of threats. Finding these threats is not easy. It's pretty tough. And you remember I mentioned 1%? Now I can read your mind. You say, okay, 99% I'm protected. I don't care about 1%, right? Do you know how much is that 1%? Let me show you only from Cisco data. So we are blocking 20 billion threats per day. We are processing 16 billion URLs per day. How malicious. We are processing 150 billion DNS entries per day. You know OpenDNS, we brought OpenDNS, right? And we sandbox or detonate 1.5 million unique malware samples per day. So now you can calculate how much is that 1%, right? So that 1% is really, really big. To find that 1%, your security analyst needs to put a lot of efforts because large-scale alerts, a lot of noise, flood of false positive rates, a lot of tools and a lot of attacks, a lot of GUIs, right, to figure out what is happening is making your security analyst useless. Incident responders is same, right? So sitting through the disparate data or lack of contextual information, right? When you do when you do threat hunting and incident response, the contextual information is very important. And gathering the present evidence, right? I mean, you know, old school forensics is like something happened on this machine, and then we do, I don't know, maybe encase or maybe volatility, right? We are grabbing the full disk and full memory, but the malware is not there, he's gone, right? So that's the biggest problem actually today. I mean, that's like putting a camera after someone stole your house, right? So again, we need to be on the endpoint and to record everything. Then encase can help. I don't know, memory forensics can help, but only if malware is there, right? Another problematic thing is the automatization orchestration in cybersecurity operation centers. And this is, these figures here is from a research. So key issues and modern SOCs, exclusive alerts, outdated metrics, and limited integration led to overtaxed SOCs, right? So that's the biggest problem why your analysts cannot close the expected amount of tickets, right? Because orchestration and automatization is not in place, so it's not helping them. And by the way, don't think that you're going to buy the best automatization, orchestration, or SOAR platform in the world and then you're going to fire your analysts. That will not happen, okay? Because these tools will going to help your analysts to act faster. It will not going to replace them. So forget about that. So by having this kind of, let's say, threat landscape, we need to take back the control of the time, right? We need to respond to the incidents faster, not 10 days, 20 days, and months, okay? We need to have solution in place who are going to show us the threats, let's say, much, much faster than traditional visibility tools. We need to have proactive hunt about this 1% of the threats. And another thing is the vulnerabilities. You see, fix the most vulnerable endpoints before compromise, right? When we're speaking about the vulnerabilities, I'm sure that you guys are using vulnerable scanners here, right? Nessus, Nexpos, whatever it is, right? Can you please tell me what you're doing? I need to ask you something, otherwise you guys are going to fall asleep here, okay? Everybody is tired. So what do you do with the vulnerability scan reports? The real one. Excellent. Who is doing only patch management with these reports? So I've seen a lot of companies, when I'm asking them, what do you do with the vulnerability scan reports, they're telling me, we do patch management. And I'm always asking them another question, okay, what about taking that report in your hand and asking yourself, did anybody use these vulnerabilities to hack these machines? Okay, we need to start asking that. I'm going to show you later, I have a demo for that, how fast you can answer this. But please keep in mind that those vulnerability reports are not only for patch management. It's also a good indicator about possible threats. So you need to go and check if this machine has been compromised and you don't know. So, focusing the 1% of these threats, we need to stop malware, we need to eliminate blind spots, so we need to have visibility on endpoint, on network, or email, on the web. And we need to discover unknown threats. Discovery of unknown threats, as I told you, is not happening with the threat intelligence because they are unknown, okay? That is happening only with sandboxing, only with behave analytics, only with heuristic engines and stuff like that, because it's unknown, because nobody knows that that file exists. So, stopping malware, we need to have prevention engines in place, so like AV, like fileless malware detection, one-to-one signature matches, focus on working with the indication of compromise alerts, because indication of compromise alerts has lower false positive rates. Let me tell you what I mean. Multiple logs can have multiple events can make an alert, multiple alerts can make an indication of compromise alert. Okay? So when you see indication of compromise alert, it means something happened. So focus and ask from your vendors to provide you indication of compromise alert. We are not in 1999 to receive events and logs from our cybersecurity devices. That is dinosaur old school stuff. And to put them in SIEM and to wait SIEM to correlate them. No, ask them alert. Because alert must be correlated, right? To be alert. Detection, static analysis, right? Again, static analysis can happen on the network. If you have a network device, IPS, IDS, who's going to intercept a file, a piece of application, unknown, what you can do with that? You can check the static analysis, right? You can extract the headers, SHA-256, and stuff, but you cannot decide if that piece of application is malware or not, because the malware on the network is not active, it's just a data passing through your network, right? To decide that piece of application is a malware, you must execute it, and to monitor his behavior, and if he's doing a malicious behavior, then you can mark him like a malware. So malware fights from network is dead. Network is encrypted, a lot of malware is doing a certificate pinning, and again, you need to run the malware and to observe his behavior. Sandboxing, again, as I mentioned before, is very important. Malicious activity protection. This is especially asked from your vendors to provide you a activity-based detection. Let me tell you one sample. How you can protect yourself from zero-day ransomware, right? It's really difficult because the ransomware itself doesn't require any privilege escalation to run, doesn't require any man-in-the-middle browser attack, doesn't require any zero-day, nothing. Maybe you need a zero-day to deploy the ransomware, but after you executing the payload, it's just encrypting. So behave is like this. Ask from the vendors to provide you a solution who's going to block any process who is doing a mass encryption of the files, or mass movement of the files, or mass delete of the files, because that's the only way to capture unknown zero-day ransomware. Of course, that will raise a lot of false positive rates, but that's the only way. So, machine learning, again, I've seen a lot of vendors promoting like we are detecting zero-day malware using machine learning, big data analytics, hallelujah, stuff like that. But when I'm asking them, do you guys monitor all unknown files? No, right? So if you don't monitor all unknown files, then all this, machine learning stuff and stuff like that is useless because you don't have the data to run the machine learning, right? You must have amount of SHA-256 or any other data regarding to these unknown files, and then to run these machine learning algorithms and stuff like that. So they don't have that data, but they're doing machine learning. It's okay, we can believe that. Device flow correlation is very important. So device flow correlation means some kind of IPS functionality on your endpoints, right? To be able to intercept IP, outbound and inbound IP connection traffics if it's going to the CSC servers. Don't think that anybody going to attack your company with a non-bad domain or IP address. He's stupid, he's kiddie, right? They're going to come with a clean or unknown IP addresses. And your threat intelligence cannot help you in this case, right? Because the IP address is clean. Again, cloud indication of compromise is very important, so you must have some kind of threat intelligence where they're going to give you an indication of the compromise alerts, okay? Where you can send them a logs, or where you can send them a multiple alerts, where they're going to correlate these alerts, and when they're going to tell you, hey, this machine is compromised. To reducing risk, again, vulnerable software, low prevalence is very important to know when the new files are in your environment, and proxy logs and analysis. How much time I have? Okay. So let's jump something then. Ransomware, again, let me come to ransomware because it's a hot topic. So the ransomware is, when we're speaking about ransomware, everybody is pointing to the money that they're doing, right? There is a good money on ransomware, right? That's correct. But another biggest reason why ransomware is booming is that it's easy to do. Ransomware attacks are much, much easier than a man-in-the-middle browser attack or credit card thieves or any other kind of attack. Because it doesn't require, as I mentioned before, any zero-day, doesn't require any man-in-the-middle browser, let's say, attacks, doesn't require a second factor bypassing and stuff like that. I mean, to build a banking Trojan, you need to do a lot of stuff to be able to steal someone's money, right? You need to have man-in-the-middle browser attack, you need to bypass the second factor, you need to have a malware, you need a dropper, a lot of stuff. For ransomware, it's not like that. Everybody here can go in underground and they can rent a ransomware right now. They can compile their own, which is unknown. That threat intelligence doesn't know about that, and they can start attacking, right? So for that reason, ransomware is also very important. It's easy, doable. Blind spots, focus on the blind spots, focus where the data is, and have a solution where you're going to see these unknown files. Another thing is agentless detection. So we are lucky at Cisco because we can detect if some of the machines are compromised without installing an agent on them. Only by checking proxy forward logs. You know these trash logs that even ISP can see? Only doing analysis in these logs, we can say, haha, this endpoint is compromised. We don't install any connector there, okay? This is extremely good for Windows 3.11. I've seen companies still using it. Or SCADA devices, IoT devices where you cannot install connector, which has on, let's say, a limited operating system, some Linux embedded and stuff like that. So, how we discover unknown threats? Again, we are coming to this. Dynamic and behavioral analysis with sandboxing is known techniques today. So now, coming to threat intelligence, can you please tell me, guys, how your expensive threat intelligence feeds can detect the document.doc with macros enabled that I just created 1 second before? No, yes? So again, we are coming to that. You must have more than threat intelligence. Because you can detect this. If I'm attacking someone, we have the first victim, then maybe know the SHA-256 of this file, and you can push it to your devices. So again, zero-day malware and targeted attacks requires more than threat intelligence. Again, have the capability to monitor everything, right? So what happened? Where did happen? Malware came from, right? The infection vectors, email, phishing link, dropper, exploitation, and stuff like that is very important. Where malware has been, right? The lateral movement, which I'm going to show you later. We have some time for a demo. What is doing on my endpoints, right? On process level. And how do we stop it, right? I mean, when you're doing incident response, doesn't matter if you're in-house or, I don't know, MSSP, you can't clean up an infection and to put the machine on the production if you don't have a full visibility on the persistency. Make sense? If you don't see the persistency, format that machine. Don't clean the malware and give it back to the... So you must have a solution. I'm going to show you the persistency. If you see the persistency, then you can remove persistency, you can clean the payload, and then you have a chance to put the machine back to the production. If you have a SOC operation guys who are sending 55 or 60 tickets every day for format, someone will going to kill them, okay? Because you are actually doing a huge impact to business continuity. So you must have a solution in place to separate what to be formatted and what to be cleaned. And cleaning is starting by knowing the persistency. Let's say in-depth investigation, right? So you must have a solution where you're going to correlate, search all kind of IOCs, which I'm going to show you later. And one-click remediation. The biggest issue with the cybersecurity operations centers today is like they don't have a power to act. You know, the guy, he just detected something, he want to block a shot to 56. And he's spending hours and hours with the AV guy because he's on a vacation somewhere just to block a shot to 56. It's same for IP address, same for DNS. Well, with Cisco right now, with the CTR, Cisco Threat Response, we are giving that power to the analyst. So with right click of his mouse, he can block a shot to 56, IP, domain, email, whatever he wants. Of course, he's not stupid to block everything, but at last, we are giving this power back to the analysts. And this is extremely good for time to response. I mean, you have a best solution in the place, you detect it fast, but you cannot respond because someone didn't approve your change management to block IP address, right? So, again, coming to the endpoint, why the endpoint is focused again is because traffic is encrypted more and more. TLS 1.3 is enforced right now. Even the Internet Task Force, we managed to have some workarounds to not go with a higher, cheaper, so we cannot detect, we cannot decrypt everything, but someday that will happen also. So basically, we are blind on the network, okay? And as I mentioned before, malware doing certificate pinning, so SSL off will not help for this kind of malware, so we need to be on the endpoint itself to be able to fight this kind of threats. I'm not fan of Gartner at all, but we are following. So this is from the Gartner panel, actually. If you want to invest tomorrow, if you have a budget tomorrow to buy something, what we need to buy, Gartner says go and buy ADR. And I'm going to show you later why they say this. Or if you are smarter enough, you can build your own open source, right? It's up to you. So M for endpoints. Now coming to the endpoint itself, right? It prevents attacks and blocks malware in real time. I'm going to show you guys. Continuous monitoring all processes and accelerate investigation and remediation faster because everything is on your right click of the mouse. What is M for endpoint? So M for endpoint is a hybrid solution, is an ADR and APP from Cisco. Actually, it's acquisition by from SourceFire. It came from Immunet, actually. It's a 15 years old ADR solution. So we have around 18 engines which is providing protection. All of these engines are in one single connector, one single GUI, and one single install application. What we have one-to-one signature check, we have fuzzy fingerprinting engine, we have machine learning engine, indication of compromises, dynamic, everything, right? But look, still we don't provide 100% protection because 100% protection doesn't exist. You can take this like when you're putting 8 locks in your door here, right? But we still put a camera inside of the room. So that's how we fight unknown and known threats, by putting cameras on every single endpoint. So Cisco AMP blocks threat but is trust nothing. So trust but verify, right? Records everything, so it's like a DVR. You can go back in the time 30 days and you can see what is happening on your endpoint. I'm going to show you later. It analyzes continuously. Look, when a file is bad, when we mark someone that is bad, it's bad forever. That disposition is not changing, only if it's false positive, right? If we mark something good, it's always for good, right? I mean, PowerShell.exe, right? It's non-good file. But unknown files, they're changing. For that reason, every single unknown file, when we decide that this file is unknown, it didn't behave too much maliciously, we allow that file to run to your endpoints, but we monitor him every day because his behavior can change by the time. So we don't trust. We always continuous monitor. And if we see that something is happening with this file that is bad, then we are sending a retrospective alert to kick that guy, to quarantine that file. Do you know how this works? This works exactly like this. In this room here, let's say in this room we have a camera here, right? And now I am a non-good guy here. I am presenting, and you guys are unknown guys here, right? So you enter this room because you were not unknown bad. The ladies, the nice-looking ladies, they were checking your IDs. And they say, no, you guys are not bad guys, so you can enter the room. Now I'm going to grab a coffee, and some of you is coming and putting a USB to my machine here, right? So the camera is recording, right? That Goran is coming here and infecting my machine. Can that camera alert Goran's action? Yes or no? Who can alert Goran's action? If a security guard watching that camera at that time. So that's how actually AMP works. When you install AMP, everything what is happening on the process level, who is executing who is speaking to who is creating who is deleting who, is going to the cloud, a big brother. And big brother says, an unknown file is dropping another unknown file. This is stinky, right? Or a non-bad file is executing a non-good file. Again, it's problematic. And then he's sending a security guard to kick out Goran, right? Because he was unknown, and now we know that he's bad. You need to have this kind of solution, which I'm going to show you later. Hunting, right? You need to have a capability to hunt something. Continual exposing and blocking. So basically, hunting is to hunt something and to block something. I mean, when you're going to block a known threat on the endpoint, the solution itself should replicate that command, and that he needs to go to block. He needs to go and block network, web, email, DNS, from everything. That's very important to have a really good time to response capability. Alert via interactive actionable history of events. This is again very important, which I'm going to show you later. So you go 30 days back in the time retrospectively, and you can see what is happening, and you can answer, hey, there was a malware, he done something, he deleted himself, but I can see what he done to my endpoints. So, demo time. Before demo time, do you guys have any question? No? Okay. So, do you want me to repeat everything in Macedonian? Okay, so let me show you how much time I have. Who is the time watcher? Timekeeper.
No.
Enough? Okay. Well, if you say enough, then be ready for 4 hours now. Okay, so this is M for Endpoint Dashboard, which is our area. So it shows you a nice graph, right? What has been compromised in my environment, the quarantine detections, agentless detections, vulnerable applications, etc., etc. Let me go to one indication of the compromise alert. Look, this is indication of compromise alerts. Indication of compromise alert is totally different than indication of attack. Indication of attack doesn't mean that the attack was successful. But indication of the compromise means that something happened. So, if your solution is providing you indication of attack alerts, then you need to start thinking about cleaning up them, correlating them extra to be able to figure out what happened. Let me give you one sample. What will happen if you have a water holding attack and malware has been downloaded on 100 machines? So you see from your proxy, web proxy or whatever it is, right, that malware has been downloaded 100 times in 100 machines, right? So you receive 100 alerts saying malware downloaded, right? If you don't have a solution, you're going to tell you what happened next. You need to clean up these alerts because you need to figure out what happened with this malware with these machines. How Cisco M works is different. Cisco M, because it's a connector on the endpoint, he knows if these machines are Windows or Linux. He knows if the malware is Linux or Windows. So you're going to say, look, this malware has been downloaded on 100 machines, but 50 of them is Linux machine, and 50 of them is Windows machine, and the malware is Windows, so I'm eliminating these 50 alerts. I'm going to take care later. From these 50 machines, only 2 stupid guys click at the malware, right? Now, AMP says, okay, 50 downloads, 2 executions. But only one of them didn't have the Acrobat Reader patched, so only one is compromised. So AMP will going to tell you, this machine is compromised. Go and fix this one. So this is how indication of the compromise alerts will save time. And you're going to give your analyst some kind of capability where they can focus on what happened. Let me open one of the machines that has been compromised. And by the way, I didn't come to do AMP demo here, but I saw a lot of other people are showing demo reel, so I say, okay, let me show you something. I'm going to open device trajectory, which is a DVR recorder. So let me go to, I hope that you guys can see. I know that this is not so perfect, but if I do something like this. Yeah. As you can see here now, what happened with this, so this is my device trajectory. Look, I can scroll back in the time, and I can see which process is executing which process, who is creating who is doing a connection, who is executing who, etc. So I can go back in the time to see what is happening on this endpoint. What happened in this endpoint? This machine got encrypted. And then they call the backup guys, you know, the cool guys who are always trying to save something. They came in and they say, hey, we're going to save this. We have a shadow copies, right? They checked shadow copies and there was no shadow copy in this machine, okay? Even if the shadow copies were active on these machines. So from the incident response perspective, you need to answer this. What happened to my shadow copies? Number two, they gave a clean machine to this guy, and after 2 hours, the clean machine also got encrypted. So now we have a second question. Persistency, right? How the second machine got encrypted? So traditional AVs or solution who are not monitoring the endpoints like M does cannot answer these questions. Let me show you how fast I can come up with an answer for these two questions. First of all, I want to know what happened with my shadow copies. So the application responsible for managing shadow copies on the Windows, 5 minutes? Shadow, speaking fast, right? Watch? Okay. So, shadow copies is VSS admin. So if I write VSS admin here, now it's going to show me right away that VSS admin has been executed by malware itself. So I know why the shadow copies are not there, right? The second thing is, now I know that malware is this guy here, t.exe. I'm going to tell, hey, tell me where t.exe is moving himself. So I'm going to check movement here, and I'm going to write t.exe. And here we go. He is moving himself to the app data roaming folder. For that reason, the second machine got encrypted, right? Because he moved himself there, he synced the profile, and he clicked the malware again. So this is how deep visibility M4 endpoint can show you guys from the threat perspective. So yeah, so thanks for listening to me. Now, if you have any other questions, ideas, suggestions, we're going to have a panel here. So thank you. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Stan. Thank you, Stan, for excellent presentation. I would like to call Mr. Stanisha and Mr. Masterovic for panel discussion. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. On a panel discussion, we will discuss a little bit about national CERTs or any CERT organization, how to build cyber resilience. I basically prepare a couple of questions, but of course, you from audience are welcome to submit additional questions. So my first question to all of our participants, Mr. Mastilovic, Mr. Stanijan, and Mr. Aruc, is what role national CERT should take in terms of cyber resilience as a difference to government CERTs, private CERTs, or CERTs dedicated to, let's say, individual organizations. So, you, Mr. You want? It doesn't matter. Let's start from you at the beginning, and we will.
Yeah. So I mean, I really don't see any difference between national CERTs or private CERTs or. Mike. Okay. So I really don't see any difference between what kind of CERT you have, right? Because the technology is always the same. Maybe the incident response best practices are totally different, and how you handle the data is different. But speaking about cyber resilience, I still think that before cyber resilience, we need to go to the cyber hygiene, right? We need to have a clear understanding how we're going to set up our cyber hygiene within the company. And after that, cyber resilience. Because having a full-blown cyber resilient project without having a cyber hygiene is like, I don't know, building a lot of walls around but leaving doors without a lock, you know. So I think that everything starts from a cyber hygiene, if you ask me. That's of course, my opinion.
But there are difference between national cert and, for example, a government or private cert. This is depending of if there are some infrastructure who is charged for this infrastructure. For example, in Serbia, national cert is not on charge for government infrastructure.
Okay, so
and government, yes, and government cert they have a different role, and they are closer to SOC team, not to CERT team, for example. Private company also have own obligation to clients, and because that also have also do job like SOC teams. Okay. They haven't too much time to analyze incident, what happened, what was happened, and they must solve problem to company continue to work. And in this area, as how to prevent, and I agree, but cyber hygiene, sorry. This is very important. And also awareness. And as national cert, as we have a primary job to increase awareness to people, to know what can do, what can not do.
So, about national cert and its role, it could be defined in different ways. So, in model that we are trying to build in Bosnia and Herzegovina, for example, we are not able actually to establish the official national cert because actually the political relations of the country and cybersecurity is something what is the responsibility of the regional level on our entities. But we are trying to build some contact point for coordination. And in many countries, actually, the CERT, which we call national CERT, acting as a coordination point. That depends also how your CERT networks is built in different sectors on different level of government. So if you have a strong CERT networks under you, which have capabilities to react in response, of course, detect before that any cyber threats in that situation. National CERT can act as coordination point, especially in a situation when cyber threats attacking more different sectors. We have some, let's say, the wider critical situation in the country. If you need to cooperate with some other government institution like police, for example, because we talk about cyber threats to critical infrastructures that could involve many other institutions also. So in that situation, maybe it's not necessary to have a proactive action, but of course in some smaller, let's say, ecosystem, when you don't have infrastructure below you, national cyber CERTs can take also responsive action and proactive action in that case. So there is a different models. It's very dependable on country size, on internet organization. Actually, what we discussed is the best solution for our let's say, environment in the country. And of course, we need to calculate the risk we have and how much business we have actually in online playing. So if we have higher risk, so we can make stronger infrastructure for cyber security actions and to maybe change the role of national CERT in that case.
Excellent answers. Second question is basically related again to, let's say, cyber resilience, but now I would like to ask you what is the best way how we should achieve cyber resilience of, let's say, institutions which are manipulating with critical data. What steps maybe are the best in accordance to your opinion to be performed, how in order to protect crown jewels of any organization and to avoid situation which unfortunately I experienced, let's say, a few months ago, which I presented here on our track. Mr. Stanislav.
I think that the backup and to find some critical process in institution is the main thing. And if you have some incident, if you have some problem, if you know what is going and how, I must say, when the paper document going by the office and in the company, this is the best way in critical situations and to back in normal business process.
Please.
Actually, we discussed a similar topic 1 week ago on ITU Cyber Drill in Bucharest about what's actually the solution for future cyber threats, and I find one non-technical point because, okay, from my perspective, it was great pleasure to listen to you and your presentation here. And technical solution we have, and we have some experts, but actually we have lack of education in general in our countries, in our environment, in ecosystem. Not only when we talk about experts, but also when we talk about regular people using the infrastructure. You have people using computer networks, computer services on a regular basis for daily job, but we actually talking about non-technical person. And maybe the best answer is one citation, very famous guy in cybersecurity world, Bruce Schneier. If you believe that technology will resolve your problems, that means that you don't understand technology and don't understand your problems also. So we cannot only be based and wait that, okay, we have infrastructure, we have devices, we have advanced algorithms, because even if you build amazing cybersecurity infrastructure around your system and your applications, if you have a guy in your company who still use a yellow sticker to put on monitor with password, your system will be compromised very soon. Doesn't matter how much money you spend in that. So yeah, actually, the humans are the weakest point in the chain of building cybersecurity systems. So education at least 3 times, and huge gap. And after that, we can discuss about technical solutions. Of course, we will face many challenges in the future. 2 years ago, I attended one conference, IEEE conference on cybersecurity in the USA, and actually we discussed about the future trends, because in general, the cybersecurity experts in the United States expecting that for less than 5 years, the most cybersecurity threats will be based on artificial intelligence algorithms, but actually we expecting for less than 1 year after that, that we will have solutions based on artificial intelligence. So you will have a very strange situation that the threats and defense systems evolving without any interaction with humans, actually. So this is something what is actually some, let's say, prediction, but of course we can discuss.
Yeah, I mean, I have just 2 points. You mentioned sticker on the notebook, right? That's cybersecurity high note, I mean, the basics. The second thing, like a person who grew up in Macedonia and who is living in Europe, right? I think that the biggest power is on you guys, government. You need to force something to be happen. if you ask me. Do you know why we are obeying the rules in Europe when we are living in Europe? Because the fines are there. Same is for cybersecurity. You guys need to come up with something that is mandatory, they must do it, right? And then something optional that they can do it. Coming to the question, I'm too old actually, 2016 I think. So Black Hat, United States, there was defenders, a blue team, red team, pure artificial intelligence attacking each other, and we were watching. Pure machines who are trying to find vulnerabilities, they're compiling a payload, they're delivering. So we're going to see that, that's for sure. But again, I still think that you guys, like a government, you need to come up with a strategy which will be mandatory for the companies. Like you need to do this and this mandatory. Look, I mean, I know in Turkey very well. 2012, they announced a national SOC centers, and it was obligative. So, sorry, it was optional. 2012. 2012, I was living in Italy, Milano. I fly 40 times, meeting Turkish government to help them to build SOCs, and we didn't do nothing because the law was optional. They changed the law 3 years ago, and right now SOC business is booming in Turkey because they must do it. Okay, so Turkish people, and we here like a Balkan, we have the same mindset. Someone needs to push something to be mandatory. So I still think that you guys need to be more pushy and more strict.
Mm-hmm. I have just one little bit clarification. Actually, we work for government, but we are not government. We are regulators. So that's actually always mixing everything. We are government execution, let's say executive body. Okay. We're following decision, but the biggest challenge for us even, when we go to ministry, actually the minister is decision maker. To convince them, it's a political guy, and it's very common that we have Minister of Telecommunication, which is non-technical guy, and we have a challenge. And actually, national regulators authorities are some kind of bridge between, on one side you have a government, another side you have academic or industrial sector, and we are trying to acting, middleware. And it's a pretty complex role. So I'm trying to convince my government right now, and not only one. Actually, I have 3 governments to convince on different levels. That we have to start with to build a cybersecurity system in Bosnia, because if we want to talk about digitalization, about digital transformation, about SDG goals, implementation of ICT in many other aspects in society, we have to be sure that we will not destroy our existing businesses and business models. We need to evolve, but people are scared. And again, when I explain everything, I'm again in the first point, education. I have a problem to convince many people, non-technical, but also some technical people, how much is it important cybersecurity is a topic. Of course, the countries in the European Union, in the United States, in Australia, which already moved their businesses online, in online platforms, talking about Amazons, about Googles, they are aware of these challenges. But for small countries, at least for Bosnia and Herzegovina, it's a still challenge. And what I'm trying to do, and what my agency is trying to do, is to agitate actually for this topic there. And I just wanted to say, I would like the time decision maker to just press a button and everything's okay, because nobody needs to convince me. But it's not. Unfortunately, it's not.
So
it's not
on the next election, you need to run for a minister, right?
Tricky. Okay. Does someone from audience have some questions, remarks? I will bring Mike. Nice lady will be done.
Thank you very much. Simon Uzuno from the Energy Community Secretariat, just to know who's speaking. Thank you very much for the presentations, and it was really, really interesting. Even I'm sorry we don't have more time to get more in depth. I have one question in the context that was now being mentioned. So obviously, if we have really, let's say, high-level critical infrastructure, first step would be to make the government aware of the importance and enforce obligation to protect it. What would be the first advice, supposing that the government might not be necessarily, or the ministries might not be necessarily aware of what they should do? What would be the advice of the first steps to make agency, to make some institutional structure, to bring a law, to just acquire technical services, communicate on governmental level, copy what is being done in Italy? What would be the recommendation? Thank you very much.
Do you want me to take this answer?
You submitted the question to all three panelists? Okay.
Okay, so my answer is very simple, let them burn. Okay, because that's the only way they're going to understand that something is happening. So I'm bloody serious, you know. That's my opinion.
I think that the law is the first step because our history is depending of the law. The Western Union practice is if is not abandoned, I can do that. But in our in Western Balkans, if not allowed, I cannot do that. And a first step is law, and they define who is charged for that. And after that there is many factors of implementation. There is many factors how the process is going on, speed, etc., etc.
I completely agree. It's about, let's say, legal and regulatory framework, not only law, because law is very strong document. It's very difficult to bring the law on the table. With law, you need just to define some basic responsibilities, but cybersecurity is very living system, so we need to react, maybe to change something every month. So regulation will follow the technical trends, so maybe you can establish the new agency or using existing agencies like national regulators for telecommunications, or establish specific agency for cybersecurity and digital space, like I saw in Romania before 10 days on cyber jail. There is one possible solution, but yeah, that's actually for sure first step. But the legal framework, regulatory framework, has to be modern and affirmative and flexible, because technology evolve will not be slow as administration is.
Hi, maybe I'm not asking a question, maybe I'll just add to what they said. From the experience we have, I'm Orhan Osmani from ITU. So from experience we have on the ground with developing countries, least developed countries and so on. So there was a high-level expert group met in 2006, and they came up with this global cybersecurity agenda. That one is built on 5 pillars. So basically, no matter what you do, the first thing starts is awareness creation. So basically, you need to do the selling. People say, but how do you do the selling? You do it for free, educating the minister what needs to be on his agenda. And I think if we manage to get through the ministers and politicians that, they need to start with a strategy or a policy, then from there you can basically craft the way forward. So you cannot start on the technology, you cannot start on the law, but you need to basically do the selling, and people need to buy what needs to happen. And that having enough facts which prove that the issues are there, which needs to be addressed, then people can do that. So I think that's the starting point. So I think we need to do lots of selling, and basically that's all. Thank you.
Some other questions? Goran. Sorry, first line.
First line of defense.
Okay, because we are talking about resilience here. So, and the resilience is operational. If we are waiting for strategies, laws, bodies to be formed, there is no resilience in meantime. So this question is for Senate first. How you can envisage what we should do in a situation that we don't have the resources? You've mentioned that the humans are the ones
Yep.
who are looking at the camera.
Yep.
Without big data, there is no machine learning, there is no artificial intelligence, and we need to move closer to the source of attack, to the endpoints. How we should do this in this environment?
You mean
in terms of resilience? What strategy you will propose?
Look, again, so every strategy should be tied to process, technology, and people, right? So now we have a problem with people because we cannot educate people. We cannot educate the ministry, right? Because he doesn't have a relevant background for that. And then technology is there, right? As other people are saying here. So I totally agree. I still think that the best option is to have some kind of mix, like best practices, and something that they need to have like a KPIs that they need to implement by the time. Look, I don't agree totally that we don't have a people and we don't need to do anything. I don't agree with that, okay? And I don't agree that we don't have a processes, so we cannot wait someone to drop the processes from the space, okay? So that's for sure. And all these years, by doing like Mr. Orhan is saying, I know him a long time ago, so is okay, but I don't see personally, I spent all my life in Macedonia, I don't see that this kind of soft approach, intellectual approach is taking us somewhere. I still think that someone needs to take the, how you call it, stop it, right? Yeah, I still think that, okay? Doesn't matter how hard you're going to hit or who is the victim and stuff like that. I still think that something needs to be, look, on private sector we have KPIs, right? KPIs are tied by time. So that tying you have a timing when you need to do something. Why we don't have timing for the government? And why government doesn't give a same timing for private sector and public sector? So that's one thing. The second thing is, again, there is a lot of things. I mean, your answer is actually really wide. Your question is really wide. For me, again, the most important thing is, speaking from technological perspective, I really want to do a lot of investment on the endpoint, my personal opinion. From the process perspective, we are coming to the cybersecurity hygiene, the password stickers and stuff like that. From people perspective, maybe the Ministry of Education will going to start promoting on the primary and secondary schools to have some cybersecurity trainings, right? I mean, at the end, we are coming to that we need to have on three pillars. We need to go process, technology, people all together, someone to push this, doesn't matter if it's a best practice or if it's a mandatory. Technology is there. Technology is changing. Look, today we are speaking about ADR, we are speaking about SOAR platforms, SIM is going more on second plan and stuff like that. After 5 years, maybe we're going to speak, as Mr. said here, like totally artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence will protect us and artificial intelligence will attack us, right? We need to start from all three pillars, I think. Process, technology, people, yeah, and culture. Look, I mean, that's the missing point. The culture pillar is very important in cybersecurity, especially in the Cybersecurity Operations Center. In all my blueprints, I have process, technology, people, and culture. How to keep up and how to build a culture that these people are going to remain there. How we can build a culture that I didn't leave Macedonia. Why I left Macedonia, I went to Europe, right? Because someone didn't build the culture that I'm going to remain in this country to do cybersecurity work, right? So that's very important, actually.
Some other questions?
Okay, Gligor Brashnarski from Halkbank. All the time you are all mentioning the minister is not aware of this, the government is not aware of that, etc., etc., etc. The regulatory bodies are not aware of that. Mr. Sorry, I forgot from Cisco your name. Mentioned something about, okay, in technology. We cannot defend from the top. Let's go down to the endpoints. Don't you think that the same approach could be also appointed to the human, to the culture? Let's educate the people first. Maybe the minister will, I don't know whether he likes it or not, he will educate himself also about this. Maybe this should be also one of the roles of this regulatory, like AEC, I don't know, in Serbia or in Bosnia. What do you think about that approach?
You want to take it? So the first question was reverse, I mean, well, backwards
use the approach in technology in society.
Oh, that's nice. I don't know. Let's fire the ministers. Look, I'm really aggressive for this kind of stuff. Goran knows me. So there's one way. Again, maybe we can ask ministers, like you told, to attend some most basic cybersecurity trainings. Look, if he's on that chair, he has a lot of free time to do something. Okay, so maybe he can start doing that, right? Like, what's the first step of cybersecurity? What he can learn. The second thing is how we from the private sector help them, right? Like Goran is providing a lot of trainings. He was one of my teachers a long time ago. So maybe we can send these ministers, Macedonian, Albanian, I don't know, Kosovo, Serbia, some group of ministers with Goran to educate them what's the best practices about cybersecurity. But again, that minister is not a Superman. He cannot save the world. He cannot save the country, right? So we are again focusing on one guy. I still think that we need to focus on young people. We need to focus on students rather than focusing and teaching one guy who's going to lose his chair in the next election. I don't want to invest in someone who is coming with the election. Okay, I want to invest in someone who is coming with the experience. So that's my answer.
Sorry, exactly that was my point. Don't invest in the ministers, invest in the people, in the endpoints.
I have just one comment, because actually I completely agree. There is one sentence I like to use, not only about cybersecurity, but about the business in general. If you want to create a happy and successful society, country, you need a country where business community, business sector leads government, not government leads businesses. Just check European Union, check the German government, following the interest of German industry, not pressuring German industry for something. So experts are in business, not in government. You just need the guy who is open to listen and to be, let's say, agitator for the interest of the community on behalf of the country which represents by the minister. So we're talking about that. Just what I want to motivate actually community to say something from business sector. Let's
turn it off.
Okay. Let's
repeat from the beginning.
I think I'm talking pretty loud. So anyway. We need to wake up our business sector to say something. We need cybersecurity framework. We need, I don't know, some different regulations in telecommunications, in bank sector, in something, because government existing because of citizens and companies, not otherwise. So we need to redefine positions. So we just need to have a guy in government open to listen what is necessary in the market.
So I have just 1 cent here, because he just pointed something really interesting. He just passed the ball to you guys, right? Private sector or banking, right? You were from Halkbank, right? Correct. So why your main web page is not HTTPS protected? Okay, so I'm using Halkbank, and it's not protected. I know the e-banking app is HTTPS, but the main one is not. So it's very easy, right? For phishing attacks and stuff like that. So he's just telling that you guys need to start. We need to start from ourselves, right? And then to chase the minister. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, I'm sorry. You have one question. Okay, let's keep this last question here because we are sticked with time and we need to go on lunch break. Please give to the Mr. Mike and to close this session. And all of four of us will be available on lunch so we can further discuss if there are some additional questions.
We can have the last question, right?
Yeah, this
Okay.
last one.
Rest of the question, guys, maybe you can email us.
Thank you very much for the explanations. I would just scale up my previous question. There are several proposals what to do. Why the government or minister, when we are talking about going first to the interest of the company, it works with the private sector, banking sector. When we go to the public domain, we must go to the public infrastructure governed by the ministers, and they must be aware, not educated, but aware of the importance, somebody to be educated on behalf of the government and operate the cybersecurity activities and let's say, measures. So that's why the minister needs to be aware, and that is among the first steps. My question now, I mean, the last one is what you already mentioned, but the answer remains unclear. Of course, the human capacity is very precious, but it is very in large demand everywhere. How do we not only educate, but keep the people in the region where there is so much demand around, and how to manage the constant level, needed level of capacity to implement cyber protection? Thank you.
Maybe you can go now. We just forgot.
If I also want to know answer of this question. About people, I think only as in the process. People who work in our systems, they work for salary, they work for some education, for some experience, and if you these 3-4 tasks are good for him, they stay in system. You cannot keep the people if they don't. We have problem in Balkan to keep people. The salary is the main problem, and there's some opportunity and there's some solutions, but this is also process. Some teams, I talked with some teams in Europe about the same problem. They have also that problem, and they says, okay, they have a cyclus of 5 years. In these 5 years, they educate people, they exploit these people for work, and invest. Yes, yes. And after 5 years, if these people stay in the system, this is okay. If no, they in these 5 years, all education is.
Yeah, but I agree. Just one thing for this one, because so if we cannot keep the people in Balkan for salary, right? They are fleeing to Europe. What about in European Union, Romanians, Bulgarians, Czechs, Slovak who are fleeing in Northern Europe for the same money, right? Yeah. For many reasons. So this is, I don't think so that this is a reason. I don't think so the money is reason, because then also Europe has the same problem, because I just came from Krakow, right? In Krakow is one of the biggest. Krakow is for me like India of Europe, okay, for cheap labor, right? But I see a lot of people are trying to go in Northern Europe, right? In the European Union, they have the same problem. So myself personally, I was speaking today also with Gorgon and a couple of guys here. I left this country to live in Europe, right now in Amsterdam, because of the culture, of cybersecurity culture and opportunities, and because I can use my capacity there and I couldn't use it here. It was not money, but it's my case. But maybe in other cases are money. But then the same problem has also European Union, right? With these countries which are in not so well developed like Northern Europe. So that's my opinion.
Okay.
I agree with you, my colleague.
Thank you.
The-
One note, I want to emphasize this, that you've come with energy here.
Well, I wake up at
This
4.
motivation-
I wake up at 4 a.m. You don't want to see me if I had full sleep, so.
But this motivation on one call, that you came here, and
What?
that you agree, that you put this on your schedule, that is a motivation that could be used. Also your motivation. You've come from USA, you are in Bosnia now. You can tell something about that. I think that this kind of motivation can keep the people here. From your experience, or why are you so
Yeah, so the question was,
how to keep them
Yeah.
or how to bring
Yeah.
them back?
for me it was challenge. I don't know where do you live, so I don't know you personally.
Actually, I lived before 1 year. I came back to Bosnia to start working for government.
Okay.
But I was employed in one research project on 5G. Actually, for European Union, lived in Sydney.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
across the Europe.
Okay.
And I'm executive board member of IEEE, the biggest engineering community in the world in New York. So I'm traveling there also. But it's just one proof, actually, and your story about your trip to come here. Nothing is impossible. So we just need to wake up people. And you point the energy of our colleagues, Senate. So we just need to wake up the energy. And most of people has that energy. But you know, maybe in this Western Balkan region, we are a little bit tired, fighting for everything for a long period. But I'm really optimistic. And that was my motivation to come back, to start working again in Western Balkans. And maybe if we increase the awareness of cybersecurity and, you know, to build that culture of digital transformation, cybersecurity here, maybe why not Senate will come back one day? Because, you know, it's not always about money. Just start thinking about your families, your friends, and private life also. It's not black-white. There is always, you know, trade-off between some advantages, disadvantages. You always can create a SWOT analysis on any topic, even on that.
So there is a hope.
Okay. Thank you all for participation on this track. Now, I would like to invite you on lunch on the ground floor, same place,
Thank you.
same time as yesterday. Thank you.